Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be going over the try it in the reading for Module 12. So this has two parts to it. The first part asks us to predict a score on a math test for students who play musical instruments. So data was collected on the relationship between the number of hours you practice a musical instrument and the scores you get on a math test. From that data, a line of best fit, or remember we've been calling this a regression line, was created, and we ended up with this. So y hat equals 72.5 plus 2.8x. So remember, this can be kind of tricky to work with. We can instead write this out in terms of other variables by just replacing the y, the arbitrary y, with, well, what actually do we want? We want the score on the math test. So we can just write that as test. That tells us, okay, it's the score of the math test. And then x, what is x? Well, x is the number of hours that we play the instrument. So we can write instrument. There's lots of different words you could use for this, names for the variable. But if you use words or variable names instead of x's or y's, it could be a little bit easier to actually plug in the information. So we could have said, okay, well, for part A, someone practices 5 hours a week, x is 5. Instead of that, we can just look at this and say, oh, okay, they practice their musical instrument 5 hours a week. What does that mean? That means I just need to plug in 5 for the instrument. So I've got a 5 here. We'll put a little times symbol. There we go. So all we have to do is put this into our calculator, and we're going to end up with 86.5. So our student who studies or uses their musical instrument, practices it 5 hours a week, we predict they will get an 86.5 on the math test. Okay, so let's move on to part B. So in part B, the actual score the student got was a 75 on the math test. So when it asks for the residual, all we have to do is we have to take the actual score, okay, and subtract what we predicted. Once we do that, we will get, in this case, 75 minus 86.5 is negative 11.5. And that's our residual. So what's that mean? What is our residual? Well, it's just measuring for us how far off we were between our guess and the actual correct answer. So in this case, we were, and be a little careful here, we have to think about this just a second, this negative 11.5 actually tells us that we overestimated the exam score by 11.5 points. We thought their exam or test score was going to be 86.5, but it was only 75. So our estimation was wrong. We overestimated, and we did it by 11.5 points. And there you go.